I said to someone earlier on, let's look at protesters and rioters. So you have young people who didn't go to London Oratory, so they wasn't trained to articulate what they were feeling. They went to a public school system that kind of trained thinking out of them unless they could get in line and answer a particular question. So it's like the people that haven't been trained to speak will stand up in a particular way. And for some, rioting is the way that they know, but it's the best that they can do until someone comes in and say, okay, I'm going to help you articulate what you're feeling. This is the next step. And that's what we're waiting for with some people.
Yeah, that's mad, because even, I felt right now that it's not a black thing in terms of the response.
No.
I feel like it has caught on, like, across the masses. What do you think?
I feel agitated personally, but then it's also making me look at the responses, how other people respond from other communities. So Arabs, Indians, Hispanics, you're seeing some people come out with their children. So you're looking at, again, this is past creed, and it's actually going to ethos. Like, who has had some type of ethos and upbringing that stands on the square and there is a clear dichotomy between wrong and right, and who's prepared to speak on it. So this is moving towards being more than just about being from an African heritage and being mislabeled. This is going towards who practices a moral compass. And it's clear to see who doesn't. And it's clear to see who hasn't been. You got companies jumping on this bandwagon. We support this. Okay, so what have you been doing for the last 20 years? Gucci. What have you been doing? If you have to say it now, then what have you been doing? Like, you shouldn't have to tell people after you came out from the toilet, you've washed your hands. We just assume that everybody's got the same pedigree. And it's clear we don't.
Yeah.
And there's one section of the community that has allowed you to lie in their face. And it's probably just because we're trying to show you a level of pedigree, and because we're not correcting it, you're taking the piss even more.
Do you think it's a sea change now, though? Do you think it's a moment in time, though, that companies are actually... I can't think of a period of time where companies have acknowledged racism in this blanket way. But the question is it just the PR thing? Do you think, like, I don't know, weeks, days, years to come, policies or approaches or anything could be any different? That's the big question for me. That's what I'm a little bit cynical about.
What I've learned in this society is to follow the money. And after you follow the money, who's behind the organization and to what level of personnel and ethnicity change will you see? That would answer the question. So we can say, we can say that, okay, companies are coming out saying this and saying that, but what is going to change in their hierarchy structure within the companies, and then the discrepancies of monies between major corporations that outsource to places where they have to pay people a pittance. That would be the big change.
Yeah. And that's a good one, because I was chatting to my friend today, and exactly that. It's the whole corporate social responsibility thing, saying the right things and all that. But you're right, in terms of the representatives in their senior management positions, in terms of what they're actually taking out of countries and giving back. For example, I think it was Standard Chartered Bank. They've got, I think they said 17% of their profits come from Africa. So they've got a big footprint there. 17% of their board is not from ethnic minority descent. Chinese, you've got to put that in there, but I think they're partly owned by China, and I could be wrong about that. But anyway, that's the whole thing, isn't it? Like, what are they actually then doing in reverse then? The PR thing is all good, but then what comes next? Like?
So we're going to see, like, this should be not like a catalyst to speed it up, but this should just highlight the changes that this is a time to talk about the changes that need to be made, not for the organization to say that, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, because historically you have been getting it wrong, and we can't now allow you to make the changes that you don't even know that you need to make. You have to take an approach and say, okay, not that we've created just a section for change within people of color that we're just going to section you off. Actually, we're going to restructure the whole ethos of our companies for the next 5, 10, 15 years and promote change in that way. And outside of that conversation, what irks me a little bit is I'm not asking anyone for freedom that is inherently mine anyway. So it's almost like we can't still ask for something that is inherently within us. We can't still be saying, when do we want freedom? Now, we are free. We have to act as if we are free. Yeah. And then we have a paradigm shift to make a decision based upon our principles and people with principles. So yes, we can be encouraged to spend within our communities and not feel bad about it. But then if you can negotiate with someone that you outline that has good principles from another community, that's welcome also. On the other side, if someone is selling something that you might need, but they're not bottom line a good person of good ethics, have the power to say, well, you know what? I don't need your designer garment. I'm the person that promotes it. This person is making something of equal or better quality. I'm going to be happy to spend my money with this person.
That's the real voting with your feet at the end of the day, isn't it? Yeah, that's interesting what you're saying though about freedom as well. I often question that. Like, what does it actually mean to be free? Do you know what I mean? Because it's kind of on the one hand, on a very superficial level, like you're not in handcuffs, you're not in chains, so on and so forth. But when you start off from a certain social, economic background, you're starting off on a back foot, and then you put racism on top of that, like how can I say it? The more subliminal, the more subtle racism, as opposed to overt, direct racism that you're seeing in America. It's kind of like, yeah, you do question it. And what is it finance as well? Does that make you free? But like, I like what you're saying. It's more about voting with your feet and making those decisions as well. Like that is all different facets of freedom. So it's kind of like, yeah, how do you want to end up exercising that? If you're still putting money into Gucci or whoever it is that isn't actually for you, then, you know, are you free? You know what I mean? You're part of you're still contributing to that same system, man.
I think it will go down to each individual person what they recognize as freedom. So, are you free to travel where you want to travel to in the world? Are you free to pursue a degree of study that is or isn't recognized? Are you happy to do that within yourself? And will you feel personal accomplishment when that's met? So we have a change in time in society where the standard and the ideology of living has changed, and now people should take the opportunity to restructure their personal idea of freedom. That way you can live up to your own level of expectation and accomplishment, except for, that house and 2 kids and a job in politics or so forth. We can go back to the 80s and there was loads of scandals with members of parliament in politics, with prostitution and all manner of things. So how do we look at happiness? What is it, and what is the standard that we're reflecting it on? And at the moment, at present, there is not very many happy people around. So this is going to be the catalyst of change. So I can be happy to say that, in the next 5 to 10 years, I want to travel. I want to develop as a chef and have healthy options for people to choose in, as well as high street options. You might be free to want to develop your platform and so forth, and we can collaborate where we can, and then we can both venture out where we can, and that's good for us. It's not like the assumptions that we make at the moment. If we see an Indian person driving a car, okay, he's a doctor or someone that works in the bank or an architect, and then you see a young black boy in the car and you think he's up to nefarious activity. Actually, he might be an entrepreneur. Like, you don't know. But those are just assumptions that have been placed on them. So now's the time to break it down.
I like that, I like that a lot, Like almost like a free mind is a happy mind. Do you know what I mean? I like that a lot because it's funny. I was watching obviously The Last Dance,
Mm-hmm.
the Michael Jordan documentary. Then they had there's a separate one on Dennis Rodman.
Mm-hmm.
He's got an episode in that, but then also within that he's got a separate
Mm.
documentary altogether. Long story short, this guy is super successful,
Mm-hmm.
super wealthy. He looked like he was on the fringe of breakdown
Mm.
by the end of the documentary. So it's kind of does your freedom are you free enough to pursue what makes you happy?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not necessarily only going to be monetary.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a good point. Even if you've got all the money in the world, and yet you're still getting stopped in a car
Mm-hmm.
because of they're making assumptions about where you've got your money from.
Mm-hmm.
Are you really free? Does that make you happy? Are you free enough to pursue
Mm-hmm.
things in a way that make you happy? So, but on another note, which is interesting than that, I can say for myself, I've probably in recent years
Mm.
more than probably my whole 20s and the late 30s all my 20s,
Mm-hmm.
late 20s, early 30s is the point in time that I've started to feel more happy.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So it's an interesting point, and I can probably try to unpack what's allowed me to feel that way,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe it is from ticking certain boxes, and now I feel free.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? So, but it's interesting, like freedom and happiness, they are properly interlinked together.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
I thought about something that seems similar, in terms of, as you just suggested, the age frame in which you're allowing yourself to explore more of what makes you personally happy. And I was reflective to the point where I'm looking now is like, I've made so many mistakes that I have to live with. So, and then I look back and I'm choosing my next steps with the mistakes as experience and saying, well, you know what? They weren't even really mistakes. So now I look forward to new experiences, whatever happens. And it's like, if I could have allowed myself to think like that sooner, I would have a wider variety of experiences instead of just saying, oh, okay, I'm going to make a mistake, or I've made a mistake here, I've made a mistake there. And that just goes down to how do we learn how to think? And we don't learn to think from ourselves, although this might have come from inspiration with the amount of time that we've had thinking. But if you can encourage that type of thinking earlier, then you can get a progressive person in their personal venture. And that could support the trials and tribulations that you have to face. Ultimately, you're going to have to. But that feeling of happiness, as you suggested with Dennis Rodman, very successful, but looks on the fringe. There's still something that he's yet learnt, or someone has been able to put onto him to let him be at peace. It's interesting.
bro, that's dope. I couldn't agree with you more on the mistakes thing. I often look at mistakes as being, that's money in the bank. Do you know what I mean? But I also live by the mantra that if it's a proper big mistake, I can't make it twice. I can't. I won't. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, and in that respect, it's not a mistake. It's just like you said. It's a learning point. It's a stepping stone.
Yeah, man.
Do you know what I mean? So yeah. You're right, man. And if you're not learning if you're not learning from your mistake, then that's when it's like there's a problem. In my opinion, anyway.
Yes.
There's something wrong.
These are the cycles that we talk about within our community. These are the cycles, and some people might paraphrase them as generational curses. It's just like, actually, there's no reflective practice, and then there's no coaching or mentoring from a meta perspective that's receptive. It will be turned into ignorance, like, oh, you can't check me, you can't tell me nothing. Well, no, actually, I've been through a similar situation, or there's a situation that I can speak to you on, which might help you in the future. And then you don't have people being led. You have people that feel more free to explore.
Spot on. I like that.
Yeah, man, we're getting there.